welcome all of you out here tonight. Mark and I have put these on for quite a few years. He's older than I am, so.
I do have much more white hair.
Yeah.
Much more.
Anyhow, the purpose we do this is to give the community an idea of who the candidates are and what they stand for and what they're looking at, and what their vision of the future is. We don't feel that we can rightly just have a whole group of candidates at one time. We like to do them individually so that you know who's doing what and why and what they stand for. Mark has gone through quite a few of the rules and stuff that we have. We've only had one form that was a little, it was exciting. It turned out okay. And we changed it. We welcome you all tonight. There's cards on the back table. If you have a question, write it out, bring it up to me, and I'll make sure that Mark gets it. It all has to go through me because I get paid more than he does. Okay?
That's good.
With
Wrap
that,
up.
Mark, the party's yours.
Thank you. First of all, I know many of you are regulars, you've heard the rules, but I pretty much go through the rules each time just so everybody is up to speed on those, and sometimes people watching online or on KLTV may not see that information as well. We held a coin toss at the beginning. The winner can choose which position they would rather to go first or second, whether for opening or closing. Diane Quast won the coin flip, chose to go second for closing. Chet McKinster's choice was first for opening, so we'll follow that as we proceed through. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for their opening presentation, and then we'll move on to questions. We'll have 3 minutes for each question, followed by a 2-minute rebuttal time. As I like to remind candidates, they're not required to use all of their rebuttal time, and they can even decline if they happen to agree. We get through more questions that way. However, as Ken said, we've kind of designed these over the year. We learn from input that we get, and we try to get plenty of time for candidates to answer each of the questions so they can really get a response from them. So if they'd like to use their full time, that's great as well. We have Ken as our timekeeper, and he's actually sitting close enough that I can see him without my glasses, so I can see that, and the candidates should be able to see as well for the 2-minute, 1-minute, 30-second, and time's up warnings. We invite questions from the audience. We have cards in the back, Ken, is that correct? Feel free to fill out the card, bring the card to Ken. He will get the question to me. I can tell you from experience and my own preference, you will have a much better chance of having your question asked of the candidates if it's not a political statement. If you ask a question that's relevant rather than trying to make your own political statement. We're here to hear from the candidates, not from somebody else that has a political agenda. Full disclosure, I was active with Chet on the Chamber Board a long time ago, but late 80s, early 90s, something like that, back when we were combining Longview and Kelso chambers back in those days. And I have been reminded several times that I've been remiss at not saying which race it is at the start of this, and then partway through somebody's asking, okay, which council position and what are their names? So this is Longview City Council, position number 6, Chet McKinster and Diane Quast. And with that, we'll move on to opening statements. And Mr. McKinster, you were first.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Chet McKinster, and I'm born and raised here, well across the river. I was born at the old College General Hospital and raised across the river at Kelso. Then I met my wonderful wife, Gita. We got married and moved to Longview. We've been married 46 years, almost 47 years now. We raised 2 kids that went through the Longview schools, got a good education, went to Washington State, if there's any Cougar fans here. And then they've moved off and done things. They've been very successful in what they do. I'm going to just talk about myself a little bit. I'm not a person who likes to talk about myself, but I'll go ahead and do it. I'm the only candidate, actually in the county that's running right now, that has worked with international companies for 30 plus years. I've worked with ports to move cargo for 30 plus years, and with the ports I ran a Longview Booming Company, which had 30, 40 employees, and we had log yards in Portland, one up at Cougar, 3 here in Longview, and a log dump. So we handled a lot of wood over our time, and it was an interesting job because you had to have certain wood at certain spots at certain times on the docks. The gear would hang, and gear hanging is really expensive. So anyway, that's a very responsible job. Of course, had to keep the company busy because we had Dad had a trust when he passed away, and had to make sure everybody in the family was healthy. I served on numerous boards. What was that? I served on numerous boards, Longview Rotary, President of Longview Rotary, President of the Longview Country Club, President of the Longview Chamber of Commerce that Mark was talking about. I was a trustee with the Columbia Maritime Museum when they did the big remodel, involved in that remodel and design of the Astoria Maritime Museum. I go to St. Helens every Thursday and read half a day to kids that have problems reading. I think reading is my soft spot. I think it's so important for everybody to be able to read. And these little kids, man, they're behind the 8 ball if somebody doesn't help them. I can see it coming up. Also a member of the 100 Plus Men Who Care. Most important, I have 9 years experience on Longview City Council, and I believe I've done a good job for the citizens of Longview, and I'd ask for your vote so I can continue on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Claus?
Thank you. And first of all, thank you to Mark and Ken for putting these on. I think it's important for citizens to have the opportunity to hear the candidates speak to the issues that are of concern to you as voters. I think there are 3 key elements for making a strong city council: a fresh, forward-thinking vision, active leadership from each council member in a collaborative way with council members and with city groups, citizen groups, and a strategic and transparent process in developing and making policy. I have the expertise and skills to enhance these 3 elements to make our city council stronger. I have a bachelor's in political science from Pacific Lutheran University and a master's of divinity studies from Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary in Berkeley, California. I started my professional career as a Lutheran pastor, serving with a congregation for 3 years, and then was the chaplain for a homeless shelter serving homeless women and men in the Seattle area. I then decided it was time to move from the Band-Aid approach to addressing homelessness to the permanent solutions of housing, and started working with housing authorities for the next 23 years. I worked as an executive director and as an executive management positions in 2 housing authorities, and in those positions it was my responsibility to develop a strategic plan and vision for those organizations in collaboration with the housing authority commissioners and with the city's leaders, and then to develop a plan for implementation with our staff. I think that's a key function of the city council, and so I have that expertise that I can offer. Housing authorities are public entities, so I understand the nuances of accountability and public process. I've developed and had oversight for large budgets for housing authorities, and so understand the nature of the city's budget with respect to funding. I've lived in Longview for 12 years. I chose to move here to be with my wife, now Chris Pegg, and that we have together decided that this is our home and we want to continue to be of service. I'm currently on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Salary Compensation Committee for the city. I'm an active member and participant in the ad hoc group working on the emergency shelter ordinance, and recently was appointed to the County Housing and Homeless Task Force. I'm also a member of the 100 Women Who Care. In exploring whether I should run for city council, I talked with a number of community and business leaders and the directors for all the city's departments, and came away. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Question number 1 will begin with Mr. McKinster. What is your opinion of the moratorium on homeless shelters in Longview and the efforts to enact rules on the types and location of shelters?
It's taken some time. I think it's a big issue. Well, it's not as big as issue as some people want to make it. I'll put it that way. we got a lot bigger fish to fry in Longview than this homeless thing. I'm absolutely against the no barrier, low barrier shelters. I believe the shelters should be clean. If you're going into a shelter, you should be clean. I believe that shelters should not be in residential areas, shouldn't be in the office commercial area where people have businesses that they've had problems in the past. I think we're going through a process it's very good. I want to help homeless people, but I'm not going to make a business out of it. I want to help homeless people who want to get help. I think we should give anybody and everybody in our society help when you can, but they got to help themselves. If they're not going to help themselves, who can help them? And so that's kind of the way I look at it. We're still working on it. Hopefully Thursday night we'll get it finalized. But I just don't think it should be all over. I really have problems with it because the only people that show up at meetings are the people that make a living off it or around it, and then we sit there and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. Nobody talks about streets and roads. Nobody, I mean, we got some really big fish to fry in this community. So that's why I said when I started that I think it's much ado about nothing to a degree. I do want to help people, but they got to help themselves. We can't be the enablers.
Thank you. Ms. Quas, same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Please.
What is your opinion of the moratorium on homeless shelters in Longview and the efforts to enact rules on the types and location of shelters?
The moratorium has gone on way too long, and we need to make a decision. The Haddock work group that was made up of 2 council members and 2 members from the Planning Commission, and then the public was invited to participate. That was over 18 different meetings. It included people representing many different diverse opinions about homeless shelters, how they should be run, where they should be located. I think that there was good compromise in the process, and I think it's time to move on. I'm a little befuddled right now because the ordinance that was presented from the ad hoc committee to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission recommended to council, is now going through many amendments. And so I'm not quite sure what the council is going to be voting on Thursday night, or whether they will be able to, because they will have the analysis completed to be able to know what they're voting for and the impacts, or we're going to have to continue the moratorium again. So there's a process concern I have here. I believe that shelters should be available along a continuum from those that are housing first or less barriers to access, to those that are much more clean and sober. There needs to be a variety of shelters, variety of sizes. They need to serve different communities because it's a complicated issue. It's not one type of person who's homeless. We have individuals who have chemical and mental health issues. We have people who are homeless who are veterans and have issues regarding their service. We have families who are homeless and the impacts to children on that. We have juveniles who are homeless and alone. So we need to put in place a structure that will allow for those varieties of populations to be served in a good and healthy way.
Thank you. Mr. McKinster, any additional thoughts or rebuttal?
How long do I have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, yes. The reason this thing took off like it did, matter of fact, I seconded the motion for a zoning for shelters when it first started. And then Mary Jane said, well, wait a minute, some of these people weren't involved. They didn't get input. And I said, well, wait a minute. If our people that are in the mental health or in the whole housing group haven't had any input on it, they need to be having input in it. They're the professionals, they should have it. So I asked, and almost everybody in this room that's in the health deal was sitting back there, and I asked, I said, have you guys had input? Every one of them said no. I found out 2 days later that every one of them had been at meetings before. So we got the ad hoc committee going, and I find it interesting, and she's telling the truth on this, because she told them at that one ad hoc committee that they're spending too much money, and what the deal was, there was people that lived around these zoning areas were all invited in. The city sent them a letter, so they know, because it's always this, a group comes in, a small group, they, make a lot of noise. Now this is part of being on the council. A small group come in, make a lot of noise, or go get things done, and then the neighbors come up and say, what in the devil did you do? Well, she made the comment, well, we don't need to do any more of this. Don't hear about transparency. We don't need to do any more of this. We know what needs to be done. That was early on. And so, this whole thing has taken long because of a lot of reasons. And it should be finished hopefully Thursday night. If not, it'll be hopefully a week or two after that. So it depends if there's amendments added to it Thursday night. That'll put it out, because we'll have to have, if they're passed, we'll have to have, public hearings before we vote. We'll have a public hearing the night that we vote. If not,
Thank you.
yeah.
Ms. Quast, 2 minutes, response rebuttal.
My comments about the expense in the process for public comment is a bit taken out of context. What I was concerned about is that we had numerous public meetings about this issue. And so it felt like we keep adding on rather than having a process that's consistent for whether it's a homeless shelter or a car tab costs or whatever. We need to be consistent in process. And so that was my concern. We had a good public meeting in turnout, I felt, for with the Planning Commission and the ad hoc group, and there were a lot of citizen representatives there. So again, how many times do you have public meetings on the same issue? That was my concern. The initial ordinance that was passed, that was developed, was made was not at the advice of staff. Staff felt like what we had in place was a good process. It was council that opened this up. and that it's my understanding that there were some of our housing providers and homeless providers that were invited to a meeting with less than 24-hour notice. So that was the opportunity of input. So when they said no, they did not, it was because of the shortness of time and packed calendar. So very few people were able to get access to that meeting. So I appreciated that the fact that the council had heard that people hadn't had that access and then created the ad hoc committee. And I would say that the ad hoc committee had a good cross-representation of our citizens. It's one of those places where it did draw people from the business community, from neighborhoods, and from the social services.
Okay, thank you. Next question will go first to Ms. Quast. Discuss your views regarding recent improvements to downtown Longview and your vision for the future of Longview's commercial districts.
We talk about quality of place. We have a beautiful place that we live in, and I think to enhance that in our downtown has been an important step. I like the art, I like the trees, I like the clean sidewalks. What we need to do now is to be recruiting in and bringing in, filling up our buildings with some good businesses, a diversification of businesses and restaurants that we need in the downtown community, and to try to create some residential living on top of those buildings. It's when we have people living and working in downtown that it becomes a vital and creative place 24/7, and we won't see the streets rolling up at dark. So that's the next step, and it's the one place in town where we don't have a limit on density. So we can really take advantage of that component in some new developments. So that was where I would like to see the next steps for downtown.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Kinster, would you like me to repeat?
I agree with I think it's great. I think the work that's been done down there this time is probably the best that we've done in Longview. I'm really proud of it, actually. You know, there's been so many plans that have been pigeonholed, and the city's paid so much for different plans over the years, but I think this is the way to go. It's the right way to go. As far as getting businesses in, I represent the city of Longview on the EDC board, which is Economic Development Board. And I've been a businessman all my life, working with big companies and small companies. So I have an idea how you talk to people in the business community and work with people in the business community. Sometimes something that sounds so good, once you start digging into the details, isn't quite so good. It might be something we don't want. But anyway, yeah, I've got the background to help bring in some businesses and stuff. So, but I do agree wholeheartedly with what's going on downtown, and we need to improve that. We need more lighting. We need less homeless people sitting on the streets down there, and that's one reason I don't want any shelters until you get over to 8th or whatever it is. So anyway.
Thank you. Ms. Quas?
No.
Response to rebuttal? I assume we're okay? So-
Yeah, I'm all
right.
done. Yeah, thank you.
Question from the audience. Let's see, it's odd numbered. This would go to Mr. McKinster first. What factors do you think contribute to Cowlitz County having the highest rate of sex offenders per capita in Washington, and what can be done about it?
Well, I'll tell you, if I had an answer for that one, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be sitting in DC making a lot of money. Why do we have it? I think we have a problem in this community that a lot of it is because of lack of jobs. There are a lot of people who lost jobs in this community. They go down the line, they're homeless. Another thing is, I think we've, over a period of time here, I'm going to be non-PC tonight. Over the period of time, we end up with a low barrier shelter. We bring people in this community that aren't from this community. It's supposed to have been a Wayfair area stop, and it hasn't. They landed here. I don't know why people do that. If somebody had an answer, somebody else would prove them wrong, so I don't know why. I think I'd really like to have them out of here. I'd like to move them out of here, wherever they came from. Because it hasn't all come from Cowlitz County. What was the second part of that? What was the second part?
Just what can be done about it?
What can be-
Why do we have the highest rate, and what can be done about it?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer. I don't think you're going to get a straight answer from anybody. I don't think anybody knows. If anybody knew, we wouldn't have the problem. I mean, really, stop and think about that. I see some heads shake out there. But stop and think. If I had the answer, if any one of you sitting in this room had the answer, we wouldn't have the problem. Don't know what the problem is, or what's the cause of that problem is. I wish I did know, because I wish I could change it, because the people on the other end of that crying don't deserve it. They just don't deserve it. Don't have an answer for you. I wish I did.
Thank you. Ms. Quas, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I've got it, thanks. I agree with much what was in the article on Sunday in the paper about why we have as the high percentage of sex offenders, registered sex offenders. One being our affordability of living. So when you come out of prison, you don't have a lot of money. So our costs for housing and other living expenses is one thing that will attract people with lower incomes. Secondly, I found it interesting that people commented on one of the reasons why they appreciate being in Cowlitz County is the respect and dignity that the Sheriff's Department treats them when they have to come in and register and check in. I think that's a good comment on our community, that we treat people with respect no matter what their backgrounds are. I think that's something we should be proud of. What can we do about it? One thing we haven't availed ourselves to is that there are many counties that put a limit on the number of registered offenders that can come into a county. and we haven't taken advantage of that. We have no limit. So that may be something that the county would want to look at.
Thank you. Any additional response or rebuttal to that question?
No, I agree with what Diane said. It's the county has its control over that, and the question was asked about a county issue, which I don't have any control over other than I can talk down the hallway with the county commissioner or something. But yeah, we don't have any control on that, so that's really, I'd like to see the council, maybe if we could set a city limit, I wouldn't have a problem with that. If we could, I'd like to look into it, because I think it'd be a great idea. But, yeah, the county question is tough for me to answer because I have no authority in that question other than a citizen just like all of you folks.
Thank you. Additional comments, or?
I think this just speaks to the importance for the different judicatories working together, be it the county, the different cities. We all live in a pretty small community as far as numbers. We've got to cooperate, work together, and have a vision of who we want to be as a county, not just as a city. And I think this is one of the issues that we should address as a group.
Thank you. Next question's even-numbered question. We'll go first to Ms. Quast. What type of business or industry should be sought for the Mint Farm or Barlow Point? Are there any types that you would oppose?
We want businesses that are going to be paying good wages, family wages. We want businesses that are going to be here for the long run, that they're good, sound practice businesses. And I believe we should have businesses that care about our planet, that are careful in how they do their business so it does not harm our air, doesn't harm the Columbia River, doesn't harm our land. It's what I call the 3 Ps. And it's a process, it's a way of doing business that has been adopted by different industries and manufacturing groups across the country. And I think those are the types of businesses we want to be recruiting into Longview. I would prefer that we stay away from businesses that are in the fossil fuel business. I think we as a community, as a country, need to be working to move away from fossil fuels, and would rather that we build our economy on different types of industries.
Thank you. Mr. McKinster, would you like me to repeat it, or?
Yeah, I would, any business that wanted to start in Longview, if they couldn't get through the permit process, I wouldn't want them here. Washington's got some of the toughest business permits and stuff in the nation. California and Oregon are probably fairly close. I used to run a business on the Columbia River. I owned 180 acres on the Columbia River, so I can tell you what permits are and what you have to do and how you keep things clean. At the Columbia River, got 35 years of working on the Columbia River, making sure I didn't drop oil with tugboats and different equipment we own. Any business that can get through their permits and mitigation, I would welcome. This is a republic. We hire people to go to Olympia, Washington, D.C. to make laws. Those laws are on the books. If an entity can meet those laws and meet the mitigation, then they should get their permits. This idea, I think you're going to shoot at me. I think this idea of legislating by the courts is absolutely wrong. And that's what's going on right now with environmentalists and the rest of the people. The people have spoke, representatives spoke, the laws are on the books, but they don't like them, so they go and they judge shop, and they have lawsuits, and they have lawsuits, and they have lawsuits, hoping that they're going to run the people out of money, and they'll go somewhere else. We have legislatures. If somebody gets a permit, you don't like it, get to your legislators. Is the way I feel about it. I just went through some of that stuff. You know, people need, you know, it's a republic. We need to get hold of our legislators and say, we don't want this stuff anymore. We don't want this, or we don't want that. But anyway, that's how I feel about it. And I'll take coal. If they can get through the mitigation, they can get through all the stuff, I'll take coal. coal won't be here for probably 10 or 15 years. It's like everything else in this world. Used to work for the Chinese and taking timber over to China. Well, every 5 years they go like the Dickens and they shut down for 7 to 10 years. Same thing is going to happen with coal, but it's not going to come back. So if they can pass the rules, regulations, I don't have a problem. I'm in favor of the fertilizer plant, and I'm in favor of the plant down in Clam. I'm in favor of the operation down at Port of Portland, Port of Vancouver they're trying to run. I support business and I support jobs and family wage jobs around this area. As far as down at the point and stuff, I'd love to see another 100 longshoremen working in this area. So that's kind of my take on it.
I think we both saw Ken getting that sign up too. Response or rebuttal, Ms. Quast?
I agree with Chet that we have a broken permitting process. I mean, I think it's abysmal that the Millennium has been strung on for almost 5.5 years now in the permitting process and still doesn't have an answer. That's just wrong. That's hard for us to recruit businesses when we have that kind of problem. So we do need to make that a legislative agenda with our state, that what is happening with some of those departments that are permitting are impacting our ability to recruit businesses into Longview and to Cowlitz County. I appreciate in the Port of Vancouver's the demand for them to have a process for scaling up business that's based on safety practices and safety records. I think that's a good way to bring businesses in that are working with materials that could be endanger our environment. What they don't address is what are the repercussions if they relax those safety measures. And so I would want to see that as a part of a plan when we're looking at bringing different industries in. I think the example that the port has of diversifying their business lines is something that I think would strengthen Longview in our businesses.
Thank you. Additional response or rebuttal, Mr. McKinstry?
No, I would just add that, yeah, the port, I worked for the port for 30-some years, and they've always tried to spread things out, and I think it's right. And I do agree that we need to have strong, strict rules. I mean, I don't mean just because you get a permit, then all of a sudden it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden you clean your chimneys. I don't want that at all, but if you can get the permits and you live by the permits, as strict as they are, then I think you're okay. I think you're okay. But I agree with you on that strictness, like Vancouver. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Next question. I've been on doing debates for a while. This is a unique question. Debate sent first to Mr. McKinstry. In a little over 5 years, Longview will observe its 100th anniversary. Do you have a vision how the city Longview will commemorate this milestone with a permanent monument?
I bet you I know who that came from. I'm not sure what should be a proper monument. I think we need to, and it needs to happen pretty soon, is we need to get a group of citizens and people that are interested get together and work on that on a committee to get that process going. Hey, how about a monument to me? I mean, you asked a question, but no. Being serious though is, I don't know what the monument would be. We have them of Robert R.A. Long. We have some of those. I'm trying to think of somebody that's been a huge, huge difference in Longview. And there's been so many people that do so much work. I don't know, I couldn't pick one. And a monument at the 100th, R.A. Long came here after he logged all of the Midwest. He logged all of the land that Weyerhaeuser has now. Maybe we should have him with an axe cutting a tree down. I don't know.
Ms. Claus, same question?
I have given no thought to this, so this is off the cuff for me. I think a 100th anniversary is something that we want events that bring people into Longview to help us celebrate who we are, who we've been, who we are, and who we are becoming. And I think that's what the 100th anniversary should be, more than a physical monument. It should be an event.
Okay. Additional thoughts or comments?
No, I agree with that. I think you're right, dead on the money.
Okay. Additional thoughts or comments?
No.
All right. Some questions seem to be a little easier than others. So I better check even numbered. This will go first to Ms. Quast. Do you support or oppose a strict leash law for the city of Longview? How would a leash law be enforced?
First of all, my dog did not die.
Yeah.
I was misquoted in the paper.
Apparently I missed something on this
Yeah.
one. Oh, yeah.
When I met with the editorial board, this question was asked, and I believe that all of the candidates are in agreement about a stricter leash law. So, but my dog and I were walking our neighborhood. I have a little dachshund, and she was on a leash, and we walked around the cul-de-sac behind our house. Pitbull came out and attacked her. And so luckily I was able to hold her so that she couldn't get shook, so that she wasn't killed. My experience with that is that not only do our leash laws need to be stronger, so do we need to do some work on dangerous dogs and dogs that attack. That's become a big problem around the lake. There are a lot of people who aren't walking the lake anymore with their dogs because of the loose dogs that are attacking. It's happening in all neighborhoods. So I think it's a safety issue for our citizens, and one that we should take up.
Mr. McKinster, same question.
Yeah, I believe we're going to have to do something with the leash law. I haven't had a bird dog or anything for years. I know would stay right with me. I got a couple little dogs that just love everybody. We walk the lake, or a portion of the lake, with my bad leg, 3 times a day. And I agree with Diane that I'm thankful your dog wasn't killed. First thing when I walked in, Rick says, the dog didn't die. Yeah, there you go. Oh, thank goodness. So I was glad to hear that. But what I see at the lake, and I see the same thing at the lake, there's less use there. And when I'm walking my 2 little King Charles Cavaliers, they look like miniature cockers. And they love you. They'll lick you to death if you get too close to them. I'll be walking down the lake, and people are afraid of dogs. They're afraid of any kind of dog. And there's a couple people that throw a tennis ball and walk down there, and I've seen people just veer away because they're scared of the dog. You know, you got a right to play with your dog, but we did put a dog park in. And I think people have, boy, that gets me. But I think people have a right to expect that they can walk somewhere without having a dog jumping or barking at them or chasing them or eating her dog up or trying to. I mean, I just think people have a right that they should be able to enjoy themselves and enjoy their dog on their leash. But when you got a dog on a leash, you got a pit bull coming out there, poor dog on the leash doesn't have a chance. I mean, it just, yeah, no, I agree with Diane. I think, 100% on this thing. We got to do something different.
Any additional comments? I assume we're good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Next question, odd numbered question, will go first to Mr. McKinster. How important is the availability of mental health and drug abuse counseling in the local area? What is the city's role, if any, in supporting such programs?
I think it's really important. Early on when I was talking about homelessness and stuff, a lot of it's caused, the experts say a lot of it's caused because of mental health problems. I think we need to get people mental health care. Years ago, I can't remember how long ago it was, the big deal was, well, mental health, people got a right. They don't have to go get treated. They don't have to go to different places, Well, yeah, we had that right, and then all of a sudden, people aren't getting the treatment they need. I mean, there's people on the street that I see that need help. They need to have somebody grab them by the arm, and that's why, kind of what I say about, I want to help people help themselves. But you got to grab them by the arm possibly and say, we're going to get you into this treatment. We're going to make it better for you and get them on drugs if that's what's needed. I think we desperately need that. I think I'd much rather put more money into mental health and drugs and alcohol abstinence are getting cured if you can. I'd much rather see a lot of money go into that than necessarily shelters.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Foster, would you like me to read it?
Please.
How important is the availability of mental health and drug abuse counseling in the local area? What is the city's role, if any, in supporting such programs?
So the whole issue around mental health is something that started in the early days when we deinstitutionalized mental health care, and it's been a growing problem ever since. Over the years, the courts have said now that we can't put people on 72-hour holds unless they have actually harmed themselves or others, not the potential to harm themselves or others. So that's something that's changed over time. We can't demand or require people to address their mental health through treatments or their addictions. So there are limits to how we can interface with people who have these issues. But we have to have resources to offer them, and we don't, neither in the mental health or in addictions. This is more of a county issue as far as the dollars come through the county for these kinds of programs than through the city. So here again, this is where we need to be working with our partners at the county to make this a priority. We need to be working with the governor to state that Cowlitz County has one of the highest opiate addiction problems in the state, and that the state dollars need to be made available here. So there's some designations that we could be working on to bring more resources in, but I think we need to work with our partners at the county to ensure that this becomes a priority. I think if we have housing with wraparound services, that will help to address the homelessness in a way that shelters don't. But again, that's expensive. It takes money. But we've got to be collaborative in this process. And if we do that, I think the issues around our homeless population will diminish greatly.
Thank you. Additional comments or rebuttal, Mr. McKinstry?
The city doesn't have funding to do it. We need to, and I would work on trying to get funding for mental health, but I think it's so darn important. I feel so sorry for some of those people that are walking around. They just need help. We just need to give them a hand. And I would support more funding for it. I don't normally say that about things, but I would on that one, because I think it's very, very important. It's important to our citizens, and it's important to the people involved in it. I don't know about the wraparound thing. I don't know. I don't know how you handle that kind of thing with people. There's examples of wraparound things, or you go in there and you get treatment, you get this and that, and they end up having tons of trouble with the neighbors, the cops, and everybody else. So, I don't know, how do you do it? Make it work? I don't know. I wish I did know. There again, I'd be doing speeches in front of people and charge $100,000 a night. But I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, it's a serious problem, and I agree, we got to put funding at it, and help those people, and help the people that are coming up. We've got young kids that are, like I say, I work about 4 hours at St. Helens Thursdays, helping kids. Not all of them have reading problems. A lot of them have other problems that's really serious, and they send them down to me because some of these kids have never seen a male, let alone a responsible male, and they got some mental health problems, and they're going to need some help down the road. Boy, we've got some bad things coming down the road at us if we don't start taking care of our young people and our kids and getting help to all these. Finish. I'm Scottish.
Thank you, Mr. McKinstry.
My mom was Finnish.
Ms. Quast, any additional? Next question, even numbered, will go first to Diane Quast. Do you support fireworks limitations such as reducing time to sell and use?
I've done some research on this issue. we went to the state fire marshal's website and found that of the different counties and cities in the state of Washington, over 30% have banned all fireworks. Another 30% have limited to 1 to 2 days a year. And then 30% have done nothing. We're in that last category. I think we need to do something about it. With the recent fires in the gorge that were set off by fireworks, with the event that happened during the dedication of the War Memorial at the Civic Center, where we had the 21 minute salute that set off a seizure in one of our vets. How do you think days and days of fireworks impact those veterans? So I hear that the sale of fireworks is a way that nonprofits can earn some money, raise some money. Well, let's figure out a different way to raise money and bring peace to our communities. Have a great community fireworks program at the lake, and that be it. Let's be safe and sane without the fireworks.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. McKinster?
I don't like the fireworks, the loud ones, the bangers, that stuff. When I was a kid, they made us switch to Safe and Sane. I don't see anything wrong with Safe and Sane. I live in the old west side over there. Those bombs go off in the alley. My old windows shake because they're old, you know. I don't like it. I'm not sure how one way to be a complete ban, but you're still not going to enforce the law. It was brought up before to do and I voted against it at Longview City Council. Brought up by Mr. Hill from Kelso about cutting back on the time. The problem is that I see, it goes to a foundational problem to me, is if you can't enforce a law that you put on the books, you better not put it on the books. Because if you're not enforcing it, that tells people that they can do anything they damn well want. I think if you did a complete ban, you might have a good chance at it. I don't know if I could go along with that. I heard from most of my constituents that talked to me that they didn't want a complete ban. Everybody wants, I could really go with one night only, 4th of July. New Year's night, I don't know why we do it New Year's, but New Year's night, I guess. I could go with 3 nights a year possibly. No, I agree. I agree. It's crazy the stuff going on now. I got neighbors in fireworks in that alley that it's a better show in my alley than it is over at the lake. I mean, it's the same kind of mortars going on, and that's crazy. But the cops can't stop it. And a cop, just to let you guys know, an officer has to see the guy put the match to the firework. If he can't do that, you can't arrest him. That's the way the law reads. So, you know, that's what makes it tough. Sometimes some of our laws make it awful tough to do anything. So probably a ban might be the only thing you can really do and really get it down. But I don't know if I can go with a ban. If I walk around in a circle, that I'm sorry, but I like fireworks, always have all my life, but it's gone crazy. It's just the Wild West out there, and it shouldn't be. We need to do something.
Thank you. Additional thoughts or comments?
Just that I think for this, if we were to move towards a total ban or even limit it to 2 or 3 nights a year, to be effective, it needs to be countywide. Again, we're just too small of a community to I mean, I live right at the county line in Longview, so if you'd be happening across the street in the county, and it wouldn't change my life or the quality of life for me in that way. And I do agree that it's a difficult law to enforce, but with a complete ban, it becomes easier to enforce. And what I've experienced is that when you have laws like that it's a changing of a culture, and that what's a high demand for the police early on will become less and less as the culture of the community changes and the expectations of the community change. So I just think, again, for the safety and the welfare of our community, we need to be looking at this.
Thank you. Additional thoughts or comments, Mr. McKinstry?
Yeah, it is. It's a tough one. The chief publicly said that if we had that in place, because we have, most of our cops are over around the lake and doing work over there, that I thought this was exaggeration. He said he needs 60 more cops just to take care of the fireworks that night, because you gotta be there and watch them light them. So you're gonna have to have a cop on almost every alley or every street to actually have any effect. You can drive up there and say, you just fire that off, and they'll say, no, can't do anything about it. The ghost did it, but that's what makes that so tough. Mr. Hill was an advocate of it. I didn't agree in general with what he's trying to do. I think, Mr. Hill, you'd have been better off the 5th of July and the 6th of July is go around and get names and numbers and stuff, and I think your list would have been a whole lot longer.
Almost 800 people signed it, Mr. McKinstry.
This is not an audience participation, vocally participation. And I lost track, that was the final comments on that. Trying to get through a couple more questions here. Odd-numbered question. First will be directed to Mr. McKinstry. Public agencies often have demands greater than the funds available. What should be the highest priorities for the City of Longview budgets?
The same thing I've talked about for 9.5 years. It's the three things that I take the most interest in, because I have some background in it. I see a lot of other people are jumping on that bandwagon. I'm really glad that's the case. Infrastructure, police, public safety, infrastructure, and jobs. I'll tell you right now that City Council, Longview City Councilmen, can't do much about jobs. The city can try to be helpful, but it's awful hard to go out and find businesses that want to come in here. It's just not that easy. I wish we could. I wish we could get, boy, wouldn't that be nice if we got Microsoft's second office? You know, or Amazon. I'm sorry, my daughter works at Amazon. She's fairly far up there. And you have a problem back there? Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, people come in and they try to get you upset, try to get you off message, but don't worry about it, folks. I can get back on. Anyway, yeah, I'd love to see, somebody come in, but it's jobs we can't do much about. Infrastructure we can do something about. We built a bridge. We did get a bridge built. We'll probably have to make another one. Might have to build another bridge down the road, down by Kessler. That one of these days is going to have to be replaced. Right now it's safe, but it'll have to be replaced someday down the road. Working on 15th, we passed the tab, the license tab, the $20. I served on a 3-committee, ad hoc committee, or not even an ad hoc committee, a subcommittee of the council. Mike Wallen, myself, and Steve Moon served on that committee with help from the staff, a lot of help from the staff. We had a lot of meetings, we sat down. We had a contractor come in 6 years ago. Anyway, finish.
No,
That was wrong, because I had, didn't I? I thought I
saw
had.
the 32nd one. Was that the finished one? Anyway.
Yeah, anyway. I'll
Same
get back to
question,
it
would you
later.
like me to
No, I've got
repeat it? So,
Thank you. We all have more wants and needs than we have money. That's at a personal level, that's at a family level, it's at a community level, it's at an organizational level. So it's not a unique dynamic. I think that the highest requirement for the city is to provide safety for its citizens. I think that when I talked with the chief, it was interesting that he said that the biggest impact to his police force was the turnover rate. And turnover is expensive. it's a hidden cost, because you have to keep training new people, and training of police officers is expensive. And the cause for that turnover was the high call demand. So we need to be looking at ways we can address that so that we can get better bang for the money we're spending with the police department. So if we can be smarter about how our money is being spent and how we're using that, I think we can stretch it a bit. I agree with Chet. Infrastructure is key. It's a responsibility of the city to make sure that our roads are in good repair, our parks are in good repair, that our water lines and bridges are in good repair, and that takes good planning. We need to have a plan in place for what the conditions are, what the replacement needs are, and a schedule for that, and be committed to it, because there's going to be other demands that come up. But once we get behind, then it gets more and more expensive to catch up. I mean, that's what we're experiencing with our schools and the school bond, right? We didn't pass the school bond, and now we have this whole deferred maintenance that we have to try to pay catch-up on. I'd like us not to do that with the city, but that requires discipline.
Thank you. Additional comments or rebuttal, Mr. McKinstry?
Yeah, on the infrastructure, the roads and streets, anyway, there's a big study done. We're working on that now. The only way it looked like it would be fundable, that would work, was with the TAB. So we put that in place. Contrary to what some people want to claim, 15th in front of the City Hall was the worst one in that study that should be fixed. It just shortly, the study said, okay, here's good streets. They need some work, they're good streets, but here's streets in the middle that they're getting bad, but if you don't do something quickly, you're going to lose them, and they're going to go down to that bottom third to take complete. You have to take them clear back to the ballast and start over. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to do that middle group, that we don't lose those good streets. They're deteriorating, and 15th was one of the worst ones of the bunch. If you drive by there, it is. I never would bring customers from. I'd never bring customers around there on that street. I'd stay away from the rough streets. I'd make sure to drive them around Lake Sacagawea. But we need to fix our streets, and we're working on a schedule. The city, just like everybody else from 2000 on, has been, and we're just finally getting out of it, a recession. That probably could have been called a depression. And so the city had to back all the funding down, and we backed it all back. Longview wasn't a city that went bankrupt. There's a lot of cities in the state of Washington that were technically bankrupt. We weren't, because of good use of the money, and that's from the council through the department heads, city manager, department heads. Finish.
Ms. Quast, additional comments or rebuttal?
The other thing that I would like to have us grow in the city of Longview is going after other resources, bringing in new resources. I commend the chief for making the application for a grant to bring in a counselor who can work with domestic violence victims when they respond to calls. I commend Jennifer Wills for initiating the establishment of a foundation and a nonprofit status, so that we can go after grants and monies that aren't available to us at this time. That's the kind of thinking we need to try to bring in new resources that will add to the general operating funds that we have available to us. I think that we should look at more public and private partnerships. We have a great need for addressing some of our athletic fields. I think that's a wonderful opportunity if we're looking at a public-private partnership to improve the conditions so that we can bring in new business with tournaments and that kind of thing.
Thank you. I believe that was I'm trying to keep track here. I think you both had responses to that one. Yes, that's why I was looking at the time, Ken. I have about 10 more really good questions, but we are out of time, so we will move to closing statements. And I want to double check my notes, but I believe, yes, Mr. McKinstry, you go first for closing statement. And I should point out, we did one change to our format. If the candidates that, for instance, Mr. McKinstry is going first, if he chooses for 30-second rebuttal at the end, he can do that, at which point you would also have 30 seconds. You don't need to do that, but we want to give an opportunity for a response at the end. So 3-minute closing statement, please.
Yeah, I just like to tell you folks, I want to be reelected. I want to continue to work for Longview. I've worked hard for 9 years for Longview. You don't get everything done you want to get done. It takes 4 votes to get anything done. And you can only talk to 3 people. So it makes it tough to get things done. Sometimes it takes years to get, I've been working on the street and road issue since the first time I was appointed to the council. And it's taken a long time. But I'll do the job for you. I'll continue to do the job for you. I believe there's a 180 difference between myself and Diane. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way. She's very good at housing, low-cost housing, those kind of issues. She's professional, and I believe it. I've heard her talk. But being on city council, you have to have a wide range of training or getting involved in stuff. I've been involved in this community for 67 years, almost 68 years. And I believe I got a lot better handle on where we should be going. I agree with an awful lot of what she says. I think she's a great person. This isn't about personality, it's about what you can get done and what you've learned over the years. And I think I can do, well, I don't think, I know I can. I get people all the time catching me and telling me what a great job and just keep running. I mean, a lot of them. It's not necessarily everybody at the council meeting, but in the community as a whole, I got a lot of support, and I look forward to serving you for another 4 years.
Thank you. Ms. Quast, closing statement.
First of all, I want to thank Chet for his 9 years of service. I mean, that's a big commitment to make, and I think we should all be appreciative of that. What initially made me think about running for city council was 2 years ago, none of the incumbents had an opponent. And that was very dismaying to me, because that's not good democracy. We need to have competition. We need to have an interchange of ideas and thoughts and vision, which we lacked in the last election. So that was the reason why I decided to run. And I agree with Chet. I think tonight's forum shows that you not only have a choice between 2 bodies, you have a choice of people with different visions and different skill sets and different experiences. So I'd ask that you consider what you heard tonight. I ask that you listen to us again in October with the League of Women Voters Forum, and then compare what we said with your values and your desires for this community, and vote your conscience. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume
We don't need the 30-second
Okay.
thing.
No, we don't.
I apologize for going over. I'm a stickler for time, having been in Toastmasters for years, but there were so many good questions, and they were doing a great job of elaborating on the questions, so I wanted to let them run as long as possible. Thank you, first of all, to Ken Botero, my partner in crime. If there's anything you really like about it, give Ken the credit. If there's something you don't like about it, come complain about it to me. Big thank you to the media in attendance. I believe, is it Rose from the Daily News? We have, I should remember your name as well. Chris from Cowles County News Uncensored, and Dwayne is recording for KLTV. So we have a lot of coverage tonight. I appreciate the media doing that. As I always do, a very special thank you to both of the candidates. Kind of echoing along what you said, it's difficult to put yourself out. It's difficult to serve those years. It's a commitment. We appreciate all the candidates for doing that. Real quick plug, next Wednesday, 2 nights from now, we hear right back here, Longview City Council position number 5, Mary Alice Wallace and Megan Ritchie. And then we have a double header on October 17th. 7 o'clock will be Longview City Council position number 7, Amber Rosewood and Steve Moon. And at 8 o'clock, Longview School Board position, CJ Nickerson and Joe Hobson. We'll have other debates coming up after that, but that's probably enough for you to remember at this point. Thank you all. If you have any comments or improvements that we can make, we are always learning, so we appreciate evaluations. Thank you for coming.